So part of my gratitude of being here is back in 2012, a teacher of mine, a relative, a lady named Jermaine Sittingborough, was crossing over, and I was holding her hand, and she said, "Thank you." That's a hint, huh? Okay. Thank you. So anyway, I'm sitting there holding Sister's hand, and she said, "Share the medicine, help the people, and stay on the clock." So this is an opportunity to do that today, to share the medicine, to maybe help the people, and stay on the clock. So what I'm doing is just sharing stuff that I learned, and hopefully it's helpful. So one of the things that's helped me learn over the years is what's called teaching stories or learning stories. So this is one of my favorite learning stories because it covers all four dimensions. It covers the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. And part of my personal interest, apparently in this lifetime, has been able to make connections between the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. At some level, I understand that they're all connected, that they can't be separated, that any kind of healing work I'm doing is in all four of those dimensions. But my curiosity is, how do they really work together? How do we make this work? So this is a story that helped me understand. So Grandpa was at a Thanksgiving with children and grandchildren, and one of their grandchildren, a granddaughter, was about 16 years old, says, "Papa, I want you to help me pick the right kind of boy." Tell me what that means. I don't understand. Well, let me back up here. At this point, Grandpa had learned not to ask questions, but to make statements, right? Because if you ask a teenager, "How was your day?" you get a one-word answer. Fine. That's it. So I had learned at this point to not ask questions, but to make statements. So tell me what that means, to pick the right guy. She said, "I keep picking boys that pretend to like me, and after a little while, they want to change me. They want me, my hair to be different or dressed different. And I keep choosing boys like that. So I want you to help me choose a boy that would just like me the way I am." Okay, that's a big one. So, Papa, help me do that. It's okay, granddaughter. Let's go in the living room where there's a big mirror. And I want you to look in the mirror, and I want you to say, "Today I'm going to love myself just the way I am." And she kind of looks at me and says, "Okay." And she looks in the mirror, and she says, "Today I'm gonna," and she stops at the word love. So I say, "Tell me what happened." And she said, "As soon as I was ready to say, love myself," she said, "I heard a voice that said, 'You're not pretty.'" So, "Tell me how much you hear that voice." She said, "Every time I look in the mirror." So I was thinking about it. How often does a 16-year-old girl look in a mirror? Not once or twice a day. So she's probably hearing that, "You're not pretty, you're not pretty, you're not pretty, you're not pretty." And I said, "Tell me where you heard that." And she said, "That's me, Papa. I believe that I'm not pretty." I said, "Okay." So when you look in the mirror and you say, "Today I'm going to love myself," you hear another voice that says, "You're not pretty." And she said, "That voice is me." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yes, Papa." I said, "The voice uses the word you. It says, 'You're not pretty.'" So there's two. There's the voice telling you you're not pretty, and then there's you apparently agreeing with that voice. She said, "That voice is not me." I said, "No, that voice is not you." You didn't have that voice when you were born. You didn't have that voice all the way up to about 18 months old. That voice is what some of us call an implant. That voice is not you. Notice how that voice treats you. She said, well, it tells me I'm not pretty. And then I feel bad. So they only have a part of it. Thoughts create emotions, and emotions create feelings in the body. So the granddaughter looks in the mirror, and she has this thought, you're not pretty. And she agrees with that thought, and her serotonin drops. Boom, right at that moment. Her endorphins go down, her stress hormones go up. So I said, tell me, granddaughter, when you go out shopping with your girlfriends and you look in the mirror, tell me if you hear that voice. She said, I hear it all the time, Papa. I said, and that voice is not nice to you, granddaughter. She said, no, it tells me I'm not pretty and I feel good. So she's making a connection between thoughts, emotions, and feelings. The fourth connection, at least from my view, is spirit. What's going on with this child? That every time she looks in the mirror, she listens to a voice of judgment, that she's not good enough, that she's not pretty. So we were talking, and she said, Papa, what does this have to do with choosing the right kind of boy? I said, well, wounded fish attract sharks. And she said, what does that mean? And I said, well, the way the great mystery, God set it up, is that wounded fish attract sharks. And the shark eats the wounded fish. That when the wolf is hunting caribou up on the tundra, he doesn't look at the healthy ones. He looks at the one who limps. Because the healthy ones will kick his brains out. The one that limps, he can take it down and eat. She said, what does this mean, Papa? I said, what it means, granddaughter, is when you look in the mirror and you tell yourself you're not pretty, you're sending off a vibration, a frequency. You're changing your energy field. You're changing your serotonin, your immune system, your cortisol, your homocysteine. You're changing everything. When you say things like that to yourself and you agree, and that attracts a certain kind of young man. She said, what do you mean, Papa? I said, that attracts a young man that can control and manipulate you with approval or disapproval. Because you don't approve of you. So you will attract people. Wounded fish attract sharks, who will be able to control and manipulate you with words. Because you listen to that voice every time you look in the mirror. You're not pretty. She said, so Papa, tell me what to do about this. It's okay. Here's my 16-year-old granddaughter ready for some spiritual work. Amazing. So I said, first thing we do, granddaughter, is let's separate. Let's imagine you can believe just for a moment that voice is not you. That you didn't have that voice when you were born. So then we get to the next part. She said, okay, I can accept that, Papa. I said, let's do this next part, granddaughter. I said, I've been on the planet a while, 70-some years, and I can look at you, and I can say, you're pretty. At the moment I said to her, you're pretty, she looked away. I'm assuming you understand what that means. That the voice in her mind says, you're not pretty, and she listens, and she agrees, and she accepts. But Grandpa tells her, you're pretty, and she turns away. So what that meant to me is she can listen to and agree with the voice of judgment. Because she listens to that voice, she can't hear the voice of love. So what I learned at that moment is how powerful the voice of judgment is. The irony is this granddaughter has gone to an evangelical church her whole life. So she's heard about judge not, lest you be judged. That's part of her spiritual journey, to believe, judge not. What apparently she missed, she got the part about not judging other people. She got that down. The part she missed was this, self-judgment. She didn't pick up on that. There's a yin and yang, east, west, born, die, right, left, black, white, up, down. Judging other people creates a certain energy. Self-judgment creates the same energy. So fortunately, we have neurobiology now, and in the last 25 years, it's shown us clearly that when my thoughts are critical and judgmental, my carotid arteries contract. Talk about perfect harmony. I judge you, my heart arteries contract. You reap what you sow? How quick is that? Immediate karma. The other part of it is, apparently what we've learned from neurobiology, is that when my thoughts are self-critical, the same thing happens. When my thoughts are self-critical, my serotonin goes down, my endorphins drop, my homocysteine goes up, and my carotid arteries contract. The other thing that happens when my thoughts are self-critical is my neuroplasticity stops. Now what that means is I cannot have new thoughts. So when my mind is caught in that loop of judging other people or self-judgment, it's very difficult to have new thoughts. So maybe you've had the experience of having a friend that's in a bad place and you try to reassure them. It'll be okay, I love you, life is good. And it doesn't get through. They can't hear you. They don't feel any better. And you're wondering, am I not saying the right thing? What should I say? And actually, the voice of self-judgment is so powerful that sometimes we can't hear the voice of love. So this is part of what this granddaughter helped me learn that day. How powerful is the voice of judgment. And if you follow the Jesus way, you've been hearing judge not for a long time. So this is a practical application of that. I can literally change my serotonin. And the latest research says I can change my DNA by the way I talk to myself and I think about other people. Am I self-critical? Am I critical of other people? And rather than trying to stop being critical of other people, it seems worthwhile to begin to pay attention to how much self-criticism there is. So one way to do that is very old. It's very traditional for Native people, I think. And what my daughter wanted to know. So if I want to stop judging myself, I first want to say, it's not me judging me. Because if I say, I judge myself, that's two. There's the I and the self. Which one is real? The I wasn't there when I was born. The self is real. So if I say I judge myself, then I'm kind of going in a circle there. I'm the judge and also the one who gets judged. Another option, it's kind of fun to play with, is to separate from the judge. To acknowledge, I have a voice in my mind that judges me. I inherited that voice when I was little. It's not my fault. It was given to me. But I could put the judge in a chair. I could use that chair over there. And I could say, there's my judge. So we could do that with the granddaughter. It's the granddaughter. Imagine the voice in your mind that judges you is sitting in a chair looking at us. And she turned around and looked and she laughed. And I said, that's the one. That's the one that judges you. And she said, you're saying that's not me? And I said, no, baby. I held you 4 minutes after you were born. You didn't have that voice. You stayed with me a lot when you were younger. You didn't have that voice. That's not you. You do have that voice as a challenge. Are you going to agree with the judgment? Or are you going to learn to love and honor yourself the way you are? And she said, Papa, this is hard. I said, yes, maybe it is. This may be the hardest thing you do in this lifetime, is to change some of the programming you've been given about who and what you are. So how about if we separate it? How about if we put your judge over there? Tell me how big it is. Tell me how it treats you. Tell me how often you listen to it. Tell me how you feel when you listen to it. So these are things granddaughter started thinking about. It seemed really different to her to not immediately agree with his voice. To understand the voice in her mind that judges her is not her. And she does not have to agree. That does take some awareness. In this medicine way, we say it takes two things. Awareness, which is one leg, and responsibility, which is the other leg. I'm aware that I have a voice in my mind that doesn't seem to like me. It is my responsibility to face this voice. Sometimes we call it facing our shadow side. The yin-yang of things. So, we can face the voice. We can begin to acknowledge how you treat me, and that I've sometimes made you my consultant. Sometimes I've agreed with you, and therefore I've fed you. When I agree with self-judgment, I seem to be feeding that voice. Older sister Germaine called it feeding the demon. You sure you want to feed that? So awareness and responsibility. I'm aware that I have a voice that was given to me when I was little. It's not my fault. I'm not blaming anybody. Apparently all two-leggeds have this voice. Four-leggeds don't have this. The ones that fly don't have this. The ones that swim. Apparently it's part of our journey. So this grandchild helped me see the connection between the physical. What happens when she's self-critical physically, emotionally, mentally. And perhaps this is part of her spiritual journey. To face this voice that we seem to inherit, the voice of judgment. And the voice of judgment is creative. It's very powerful. An interesting thing we did with the granddaughter when we were looking at the voice a little bit, when she wasn't ready for it, I asked her to go sit in the judge chair. And she sat in the chair of the judge and pretended to be the judge. And she started laughing. And she said, over here, I feel very powerful. I said, over there, you are very powerful. And she said, what is this? I said, this is your energy that you were taught to give to the voice of judgment. How does it feel? How much energy is there? Tell me what happens if you breathe it in. Tell me if this energy has a color. And if you can imagine, she told me the color was blue, and her eyes were shiny, and her face was happy, and she felt strong. And I said, breathe this in, granddaughter. This belongs to you. This is the energy you were taught to invest in self-judgment. This is not your fault. She said, where did I learn this? From your mama, from our culture. It's not your fault. I knew your grandma. I knew your great-grandma before she crossed over. Great-grandma, grandma, grandma, granddaughter. The voice of judgment. It's nobody's fault. It's our inheritance. Perhaps it's part of our spiritual journey. So, basically, I'm sharing with you some stuff that granddaughter taught me. How to pay attention, how to be aware of what my thoughts are, and to take responsibility for my thoughts. How often have you heard somebody say, you make me feel? What have I said when I said that? You make me feel. You're in charge of me. You are the wind, and I am a leaf at the mercy of your wind, which in this medicine is an ugly way to live. So if I'm reactive to other people's words that much, it might be good to look at how reactive I am to the voice of judgment that lives in my mind. And so you know, the voice of judgment can be drained, can be challenged, can be transformed from an enemy to an ally. An older teacher I had a long time ago said, it's your job to turn the manure into roses. And the voice of judgment is kind of crappy. So the journey for us spiritually seems to be to transform this dark energy we've inherited, to not dump it on other people, and to not use it against ourselves, but to change this energy into acceptance, gratitude, and appreciation. So the last thing I want to share with you is that we've learned from neurobiology that when I use words like gratitude, appreciation, caring, and compassion, those thoughts can generate emotions. Those thoughts that generate emotions, those emotions change the physical body. If you're interested in that, Joe Dispenza has written a book called You Are the Placebo and several other books, and he talks about how we can change our DNA. We can change our physiology. Some of his most recent research demonstrates, with about 5 years of data, that if we spend 15 minutes a day, 3 times a day, focusing on gratitude, it makes a physical change in our brain. We develop more synapses that move in a different direction. We begin to control our physiology with our thinking. Some of you know the great yogas can do that. So we have a lot of power. Our power comes from what we've been taught and what we choose to learn. So I want to encourage you, when you look in the mirror, do you hear the voice of approval, acceptance, or do you hear the voice of judgment? And when you hear the voice of judgment, do you accept it? Is that true? I don't know about you all, the voice in my mind, my judge, looks like Judge Judy. Whatever. My judge has a list of things it wants to give me grief about. And this list is very, very old. So part of my intent is when my judge speaks up, is to be aware of it. You want to talk to me about something I did in 1972. That's a long time ago, dude. So I don't want to talk about that today. What I want to do is embrace you. So thank you for your time. Lift me up.
And to breathe some breaths, and as you breathe in, you breathe in light and love and acceptance. And as you exhale, breathe out all of the little concerns and cares that were in your environment, in your mind, to let them go. So from your heart, breathe as if your heart is breathing. And take that breath and take it down through your body, down through your feet, down into the earth, where the mother aspect of you is there waiting for you, to hold you, to nurture you, to let you feel the approval of you as this perfect being. Stay there for a moment. Feel blessed by that feeling of care. And now take that breath back up through your feet into your heart and send that energy back up through there you experience the wisdom, the strength, and the acceptance. Now bring that energy down, back into the body, back into the heart, and swirl that energy around until it goes through all your cells. Just tell your body to receive the love, balancing of these two aspects of self, united and filled with love. So that love goes into every cell. And then you take that energy out beyond your body, into the space, into the country, and beyond your country, into the world. And allow yourself to know that you are the center of your universe, and you are whole, and you always have been. And everything that is not this love is made up and not yours.